Hello everybody, I'm Chase, and I'm back with a new video. And this week I'm going to talk to you about the gyroscope. So the gyro sensor for the EV3 robot is a pretty good sensor, and honestly I think that it's pretty much necessary to be able to do all the missions for the FLL competition. So the instructions to build this will be down in the description, or you can just add it onto your robot. You can really put it anywhere you want. I suggest that you have it straight up and down like this with the symbol on it facing up. It seems to work the best in that position. But I'm going to talk about several things about it today, about how to use it simply, and next week I'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. But this week I wanted to talk to you about what it can do and what some problems might be with it and some ways to fix those problems. So our engineering term for the week is gyroscope. And a gyroscope is a device used to measure the rotation. Well, what we use the gyro on the EV3 to do, though, is to be able to make accurate turns. You can also go straight with it, perfectly straight. No movement side to side. I can spin the robot around and it'll spin itself back and correct itself. And it works pretty well. So a way you can do that is by just taking a one of these blocks and another one, of course, and then taking a weight block. Weight block is probably one of the most useful blocks, just because you use it so much for sensors and such, and it seems to work pretty well. And so what we can use it for this time is we go to Gyro Sensor on the weight block, and then we tell it to no, not color sensor. Gyro sensor. Okay. Compare angle. Okay. Then you want to set it to equals and 90. Okay. So then you can, once that's all sorted out, you have it turn to the right, I believe, for positive numbers on the gyro. And then we'll make sure to set this one to off, and we can go try it real quick and see what happens. Alright, so you can see how that works. And then also, I showed you how to read what the gyroscope is outputting. So if you just go into the port view on your robot, you can see exactly how much your robot turns. If you go into there, sometimes you'll notice that your robot actually has a thing called Gyro Drift, which means it can mean a lot of things. It can mean the gyro sensor is faulty. It can mean that it just when it powered up, it didn't power up properly. Things like that. So there's lots of ways to fix the gyro drift. And so gyro drift is when your robot is still, completely still, like on a table or the floor, right? And the gyro is moving and reading, 15, 25, 32, something like that, right? And then as it's moving, even though your robot's not moving at all, if you tell your robot to do something like turn 90 degrees here with this weight block here, then it would turn until it hit 90 degrees. Well, if it's moved too far, like past 90 degrees, then it would actually keep going. And it would just keep going and it would never stop. You would have to tell it to stop. So there's lots of ways to fix it. And one of the ways a lot of people say that works pretty well, and it's worked for me and my team, is you unplug it from the robot, okay? And then before you start your program, you set it on the table and you get it all lined up. And then while the robot's completely still, you plug it back in. sometimes that can fix it. And honestly, right before your team starts running your robot around on the table, I suggest doing something like that, especially if the gyro sensor is something really important that makes it so your robot goes straight the entire time or does precise turns. You want to make sure your gyro sensor is functioning properly, because otherwise it'll completely screw up your entire game. Then after that, there's more things we can do. So there's several coding. Uh, there's several things you can do in the code to make it work properly. And one of the main things is you should only have to put these at the beginning of your program, not anywhere else throughout it. In my runs and such, I always put it at the beginning here. But yeah, you should only need it once. But if you have a gyro program, like a MyBlock, I suggest making it reset the gyro before it moves the robot. So here, what it's doing is it waits for a moment. So when you activate your robot, it waits for a moment, and then it resets the gyro, okay? And it reads this, and it also needs one more gyro block here, and then it resets it. So that's all this does here, and it'll work. This, if the manual unplugging and plugging it back in doesn't work, this has another very high chance of working. I've seen it still fail a little bit, but it's different from robot to robot. And so I suggest having the programming reset anyway. But if you've never seen it drift and you've used it a whole bunch before competition, then maybe it'll work for you. But I suggest trying to do it anyway, just to make sure it works for sure. And then this is the other gyro reset program you can try if this other one doesn't work. I've heard this one can work better in some cases as well. So what this one does is it runs this program here until the gyro is back to 0. And then it resets the gyro and it'll go on with the program. So the last program I wanted to show you today can help you a lot when you're trying to figure out if your gyroscope is the problem when you're running your runs or anything else for your robot. So this program right here, it resets the gyro. This isn't necessary if you're trying to figure out if you have Gyro Drift. If you want to figure it out, then just run this part of the program. But what this does is it reads the gyro, right? It measures the angle. Angle is really the only thing you measure in this case. But sometimes using rate can help gyros drift too, if you know how to fix that. But then it displays it in text on the screen of it. And if you have this just running, if I just delete this, if you have this part running right here, while you're running the rest of your program, you can figure it out. So, you can have this and then have your movement blocks up here. And then while you're running, you can see if your gyroscope starts drifting because you'll know if your robot is drifting 2,000 degrees. You would be able to see it. It would be spinning forever if it moved that far. But if it hadn't moved that far, then you know your gyroscope is doing something wrong and you need to fix it. Next week, I'll tell you some more on the gyroscope. Have a nice day. See you next week.